due to the conflict.
Okay. Linnea Hirst is a member of the Seattle King County League. She has served as past president of the state league and various committees at the state level and at the national level. She is the current chair of our election credibility project, which is a project the state voter service committee started this summer. I think it was this summer we started. So I thought you would all be interested in learning more about the project, what we've learned so far, and where we're thinking of going next. So I'm going to turn it over to Linnea. Excuse me. Linnea, do you want to have questions come in as you go or save them to the end?
Actually, Deb, you don't need to turn away to cough on a Zoom meeting. Anyway, hopefully my comments aren't terribly long, and then we could go back to for questions if that works. If it's really major, go ahead and butt in. So I'm going to try sharing my screen. Okay, this is the election credibility project. Waving goodbye to my husband. And I did it in orange because this is a pumpkin season. So there you are. Anyway, this got started because last winter I listened, as we all did, to the shouting about voter fraud, and especially over the last few years, even the last few days. Closer to home, family was suggesting fraud in Washington. My brother heard that a woman received 3 ballots after she died, and therefore, according to my brother, we don't have good control over our ballots. And then not long after that, my other brother informed me that I'm registered to vote in 2 states based on work his grandson was paid to do in Georgia last summer. I didn't know how to respond. I realized, even though I've lived here half my life, including starting out in Washington, I didn't know how our election system works, what the laws are. And I figured if I didn't know, there'd be many other people who probably also don't know. And it was time to learn. And given that I'm a league member, pass on the information, which is a very league kind of thing to do. So I suggested, and the election credibility project was started. Now, we started it in February or March and got to the Voter Services Committee not long after that. So the election credibility addresses the mis and disinformation that swirl around voting in Washington. And we want to share what our committee is learning. We started with a great interview this spring with Kim Wyman, our Secretary of State, and her Directors of Elections and Communications. From that interview, we put together 34 what we call truth sandwiches that are now ready for use. A truth sandwich is you start with the truth, and then in the middle, you explain why you're doing it. In other words, the falsehood that's involved. And then you end with the truth. So the truth starts and ends with each of these little truth sandwiches. And extended versions of all of these 34 truth sandwiches are in the Your Voter tabloid, which is a League and Spokane newspaper product that if you haven't seen it already, you can go to the League of Women Voters website, and it's in the very first thing you see. And if you see the arrow, you download Your Vote tabloid, and that gets you to that. And this is what you come to. And some of the pages are, or excuse me, the articles are, and showing their pages are there. The election facts is the one that we put together. Although the headline for it is factoids, which anyway, I'm going to just show you a few of the early ones. You'll see it's a lot more dense than we had hoped, but there'll be other things that I'll get to that will be less dense. Anyway, the election vote officials diligently audit to prevent errors. That's one of our truths. The right to vote is reserved only for US citizens, and it goes on from there. Another one, which I highlighted because of my brother. In Washington state, the voting process starts as soon as voters receive their ballots. If a voter marks, signs, and returns their ballot and then dies, their ballot's still valid. And my husband had a small stroke in July. We already had our ballots. And the first thing he said to me is, give me my ballot so that I can sign it. You know how I want to vote. Anyway, so now, because, whoops, what did I do here? Oh, okay. Then in order to get to the small bits of pieces of the truth sandwiches that you can use on social media and things like that, go to the for members section of the state website, and you have to have a password to get into that. But when you go in there, the first thing, at least last time I've looked, the first thing that's on that list is a toolkit, and I think it's called Be a Voter Toolkit. But go into that and you'll find things like, and I only made copies of a few of them, but one of them, our elections are safe and your vote is secure. That's the short version. And each of the ones has a picture with it. So they can just look at that, or they can look at the longer, but still a lot shorter than what's in the factoids on the your vote thing. Okay, so there's one of them. All ballots are tracked and verified. And if you look at the long part, the very first sentence says all ballots are tracked and verified. And the final phrase of that is ballots are tracked and kept safe. So there are the two truths in the sandwich. Okay, since then, we've been interviewing county election officials throughout the state, and Deb was one of the interviewers. So far, we've done 30 of the 39, and we've stopped for a while because we figured they were getting too close to elections to be able to talk to us at this point. But what we based on what we've already found, we expect to have some more truth sandwiches to hand out to give everybody to share with you. And we're doing this not just for this election. This is a long-term project. As long as there's all this stuff about voter fraud, we're going to do what we can to help get the actual information out there. So one of the important things we learned sort of at the end of the conversation with each of the auditors was, we said, how can we help? So what we found from the 30 that we've talked to so far, put out accurate information. Well, we're doing that. And they said in small bits, early and often. Don't restate false stuff. So we're being careful in our truth sandwiches to just describe the stuff rather than saying this is false or whatever. Just stick to being positive as best we can. Reach out to young voters to explain the system and to ESL groups. Emphasize elections are more than just presidential. there's so many people who only vote in the presidential, and I think a lot of them don't even know about the others. So it's good to keep going on that. Promote vote by mail. We're considered one of the best states in the nation as far as the safety and the smoothness of our system. So talk it up. Now, encourage voters to observe the process. Be an observer on election day. Watch how the votes are handled, watch how they're counted. And also observe the canvassing board. That's where the ballots go if they're not sure about what the vote is meant. That's when it goes to the canvassing board. Also, remind the public to go to the elections office in order to get accurate information. They're always glad to walk people through it. And also invite auditors. If you know groups in town, invite auditors to explain the system. Educate the public about the process. Combat mis and disinformation wherever and whenever you find it. Create some packets of information. The suggestion was Realtors Association for new people new to the, particularly new to the state. And remind the voters to be responsible. If you change your address or you change your name, please let the county auditors know. But one thing we kept hearing from all of the county auditors who knew our work was keep doing what League does. And given that, I have a suggestion, which Linnea said, yeah, go ahead and suggest it. Consider organizing within your league, consider organizing observers, not only in your county, but in all the surrounding counties, or in as many of them as you can. And I could even I'll send Deb a list of the counties in the Pullman area that the county auditors have said there have been some problems. And they would love to have people come and observe. And that doesn't mean you have to be just saying, oh yeah, this is really great. It means that you're there not to pick out problems unless there really are some. Okay, that's all I have. So let me stop the share. And let's see, how do we go to, I guess we're there now. So anybody who has any questions or comments or whatever?
Linnea?
Yeah.
On our September 23rd Voter Service Committee meeting, I can't remember, it was brought up that to be fraudulent, it has to, that includes intent. But there was these other things that happened. One was participatory something, I forget what it was.
Oh, yes, that was something.
And that was really fascinating for me. Yeah. I didn't even think about that. But well, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, especially the fraud thing. As Paul,
the Quick auditor. I don't know.
Actually, Kitsap, I think.
Kitsap,
yeah, okay. On the other side of Puget Sound. The interview that they did, that some of the people on voter services did with Paul, they happened to record because the Kitsap league president couldn't be there and wanted to know what was said. And it was so good, they asked Paul if they could use parts of it. One of the things he said, and that's what Deb's just talking about, is fraud requires intent. There's lots of mistakes that are made. If somebody mistakenly registers to vote and they are a non-citizen, the first thing they're going to do when they find out they got a ballot is run, not walk, to the nearest county auditor's office and say, I am not a citizen, please take me off this list, because they can't become a citizen if they commit fraud. So they're not going to want to vote. So fraud requires intent. And now and then you do get some intentional, but most of it's just making mistakes somewhere along the line. Good point. And I remember the words about participatory, but I'm sorry. I don't remember what.
It struck me that it was this person who actually used to work in an elections office in Washington who received 2 ballots. And he posted it to email saying, look, I got 2 ballots. And this person should have knew that there was a process included, that's that barcode on your ballot that tracks your ballot, so that when 2 are mailed, only the second one mailed counts. And to post it on, social media and send out this, it was, I can't remember what he called it, but it was deliberate misinformation, spreading it as far as he could.
It was, yeah. And the thing about the sending out to, when the second one goes out, the first one is automatically canceled, or whatever the right word is. The first one will no longer voided. Thank you. Big word, couldn't think of it. You're muted. Libby, you're muted.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted you to know that our league has a wonderful relationship with our county auditor, and she actually reached out to the League of Women Voters to see if we would help, not as observers, but participants. The ballot counting, and we were told what we could do and what we couldn't do. And we had over 20 volunteers from our chapter,
wonderful,
who served in at least 2-hour blocks, sometimes 4 hours. And we're not the county seat here. You may not know that. It's another little town up the road, so called Colfax.
Oh, okay.
So we got a very nice thank you from her, and I'm sure we'll be on the list the next time she needs help. But we were not just observers. There were other people on the other side of a glass wall who were the observers. We participated in helping count.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. The I think it was the Clark County auditor's office had during the counting process had some observers who there were 2 problems, and I've reached out to Deanne Finken, who's in the league there, to find out if I just found out about this morning, so I emailed her, but I haven't heard back to find out what the problems were. But Vancouver or Clark County has had some problems, and I'm based on what some of the county auditors have told us. There's lots of problems. Skagit County had they had a problem with a guy who had a website that he was just spewing out. And I don't know if they still have the problem. They had the problem for the 2020 election, spewing out false information. So Deb, do you remember whether, you're Whitman County, right?
Yeah. There was one problem. One of the observers couldn't, because they couldn't see the computer screens when they were verifying signatures, thought that something hinky was going on. So the auditor essentially has adjusted that so the computer screens are visible to the observers during the verification process. It might have also been when they were re-entering ballots that were too mangled to go through the reader. But yes, that was the one complaint that someone registered with the, of course, they also put it in the letter to the editor of the paper, but it was, yeah, to get that, how we cheat so badly out there. So yeah, but the auditor, as soon as they heard about it, made corrections. So there
was another one of the counties, and I don't remember which one. they would not let a fellow observe, and he was really upset. But the reason they would not let him in to observe is that he refused to come in without a gun.
Ooh.
Yeah, those are outlawed.
Yeah, anyway.
Wow.
I'm trying to think of some other examples. Anyway,
Are there, I have a question.
Yeah.
Are there other states that are doing a similar project as what Washington is doing, or are we the only state that's in the league that's doing this kind of thing?
well, the only thing I've heard is that Lunel, state president, asked me to send her the questions that we were, all the stuff we were sending to the county auditors, because some other state wanted it. So I
Great.
sent that, and I don't know if other states are then, but I had an email yesterday, which I don't know if, no, Deb, you're not on my list, so you didn't get it.
Oh,
Stanford Institute did a research project in which they talked to all throughout the nation, a lot of the auditors, the election people, or maybe it was just the ones who have quit. And then from that, they did a report that's really quite interesting. I'm going to send it to Deb, which hopefully it won't. It was, I haven't read it all yet because it's long, but it's also
Okay.
interesting. So,
Is it a digital copy?
yeah. So can I do it that way? Send it to Deb, who I,
Sure. Would you also copy me? It's just my name backwards.
oh, okay.
At
Well, yeah, I'll be
gmail.com.
able to see, oh, because you're the one that sent out the
The invite.
Zoom.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, so therefore I have your information.
I should also mention, I kept in a file, when we all had to type up a report on our interviews, and then Linnea compiled them all into great big reports, essentially just sent them back. So I have all of the interviews
with the counties.
with the
Yeah.
counties, if anyone is interested.
And if anybody wants to join us, we have 9 more counties that we're trying to reach. And well, except I'm waiting until probably January to do that.
Yeah, that's after the
After the election, after they calm down and after they have their Christmas break. And anyway, so we're going to keep on trying for those last 9. And we also have truth sandwiches we need to do with everything that's come in. And even do another, some of the things that came in, I put on the list of things to do because I thought they were sufficiently important that if somebody has another way of saying it, it can be another truth sandwich. So if anybody wants to join us for concise ways of putting things without losing the information.
Linnea, how often do you meet?
We've been just out there doing it. I had meetings early on, probably once a month or so, just to get us going and to get some, feedback on what was happening. And then people were just out there making their calls and sending in their reports. And some of us were doing truth sandwiches. So it wasn't.
It's not really an organized committee.
That's,
We
I didn't want to say that, but.
well, we get together once, well, thank God, not this month, but we usually once a month, we have a state voter service committee and things are brought to our attention then, the whole committee. It's open to anyone who wants to come can join us. And I always get the notices, so contact me or I will, if you're at all interested, I will make sure you get the notice of the future meetings of the Voter Service Committee.
Okay, and maybe of the subcommittee for the election process.
Yes.
There was a last night on NPR. There was a thing, an interview with a Texas county auditor or the head of elections, who had quit. And this is a county that voted 80% for Donald Trump. And yet she was being pushed out. She was being threatened. She was being harassed because she was evidently committing voter fraud by not having it be 90%. I don't know.
Wow.
But this is serious stuff. This is really serious stuff. And we're losing a lot of county elections people. There was another thing I was going to say, and I've already right on by. Oh, I know. Susan
Fixdale. No, and Fixdale.
Fixdale from Thurston County had gone in, asked for an observer corps session, because usually it happens in June. You have to be trained to be an observer. She asked for one just, I think, last month, and they welcomed her, and another group came in at the same time, and it was a whole group that came together. And she said, instead of it taking an hour, it took 2 hours, because they questioned absolutely every statement and every visual thing that the election person said.
Huh.
And she walked out afterwards, and the group was out there, and she overheard the leader say, well, I think it works well. So if we can get some of the people who just are believers but not fomenters to come train or come see the system.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to add, Linnea, that this is Libby again.
Yeah.
Those of us who went to Colfax, and some of us did this here in Pullman at a certain location, we were 100% impressed with how carefully everything is done in our county. It really instilled a sense of confidence in us that, we've got it. We haven't always had an auditor that all of us respected, I should add that. But we have one now who's a crackerjack. And she actually came to one of our meetings, a luncheon meeting, when we were still able to meet in the library. The room was filled. We sat in a circle, and
Good.
so informative and careful and assuring us that everything's on the up and up here. So, I feel really good. It's hard for me to imagine some of these awful things that are happening in other places in the country, because we're so fortunate here in Southeast Washington with the auditor that we have.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this is being done throughout the country. It's after listening to that elections official who had just resigned last night, who was being interviewed, I thought this has got to be done. And reading the report from Stanford, from the Institute, we've got to, the league has to take this thing nationwide somehow.
Yes.
Meantime, it's because my brother said we didn't have good control over our ballots. Okay.
Most people just don't understand the system. And when I was registering people, I once had somebody come up and say, there's no place on this to say what party I belong to. And I said, no, we don't require that in Washington State. And the person was just flabbergasted. She couldn't believe it, that, we don't require you to declare a party to participate in the voting system.
Yeah.
And she came from another state, of course, but it was a question it never even occurred to me. It should have, because when I first.
Well, the only time we do is because we have a presidential primary.
Presidential.
And there's specific laws on how long that stays in the system, gets shredded or whatever happens. Yeah.
Has anybody got any other questions for us? And
Well,
please.
I only have a comment, and that would be, it does appear that we need to take this kind of effort nationwide. So I'm hoping that the league in Washington is finding a way to package this, and so that here's been our process, very much like what you've done, Linnea, but that they can pick it up and run with it and do their own interviews and surveys and find out and observers and so forth, because it needs to happen nationwide and certainly needs to happen in Texas. And where's the League of Women Voters down there, right? And I think I just can't, based on everything that's happened since January 6th and before, I just can't help but think that it will instill some hope in people, that they can feel that we're going to be okay. But if we just ignore it, it's the worst thing we could do.
I just have to say about Texas, because I have friends in Austin who are working super, super hard. And I think what's happening doesn't reflect certainly Austin, and I would doubt Texas, honestly. Then there's been problems for a long time with them trying to divide Austin by 8, with how they do the districting and stuff. So it's messed up. You have some very, very, not even forgot, but you have very sane, is the majority, and then they've divvied up very consciously. And again, I know people working so hard, and they would also say, this is a nonpartisan group, but I'll say, I'm sorry. I just almost had to just come to their defense, because this isn't necessarily League of Women Voter people, but people who are working much harder than any League of Women Voter individual I know, and are frustrated. And as we know with everything, there's a myriad of factors, right, that have gone into this. And so again, do have to toe the line, and we maybe as a state have to find more ways to do it, because we actually do have, or protect it. We do have one of the states that is the most, so to speak, fair and open, and has all these legitimate and more flexible ways to vote. So I'm sorry. I just.
Oh, don't be sorry. I started League when I lived in Fort Worth, Texas, back in the 60s. That's when I joined the League. And that was at that time, later, that was the largest league in the country, other than at that time, it was just the Seattle League. They pretty much tied for who had the biggest leagues. And Fort Worth no longer has a league.
Wow.
I don't know why this thing comes and goes, but anyway, and yesterday's Seattle Times had the article about the redistricting in Texas. I don't know if you saw it, Anne, but it's gonna go through the courts again. So.
Linnea, I wanted to say something about redistricting.
I have a
Since you
Libby,
referenced it
yes.
when you first started. So, Bobby, I'm going to dredge up some stuff here. 300 people were given permission to testify before the committee. 300 people in one night.
333.
Yeah, for the legislative maps. Our league formed a small committee. We met with Francis Benjamin. He explained carefully to us the maps that each commission member had submitted. So each one had 2. So that was 8 maps. And then the Washington State League submitted maps, proposed maps for legislature and Congress. So we looked at 10 maps. Okay. And we
Good for you.
prepared a position. We prepared a position. I was so proud of us. This is the good news. The bad news is because they admitted and said that 330 people could speak, Bobby waited till after 11:30 p.m. to give her little pitch. And there were very, very few from our side of the state who made it onto the list. And I think something has to be done. This is a clear way to discourage people from participating in this process. We were getting inundated with emails from Allison McCaffrey and everybody else you can think of to make sure we spoke up and said our piece. I waited till 9 o'clock at night. Then I went to bed. Bobby stayed on the call and waited and waited and waited. And I don't blame her for not repeating that for the congressional meeting, which was on the following Saturday. So I don't know if you have any influence, but maybe you could share this feeling of frustration. I attended our Melt Pod meeting and I gave our leader, Jean, an earful about how upset I am the way we were treated. There must be some way this can either be spread out or there can be a quota by different districts of how many speakers. It's clearly unfair when the calls were predominantly by the West Side, often many people from the same little town were allowed to
Oh,
speak. So we waited
interesting.
and waited and waited for a turn that almost didn't even come. So
Did they, all the people from the little town, did they all have the same message or were they?
yeah.
Yeah.
We're in agreement. Don't do this, don't do this, and we want you to do this. And so, I mean, why did we even bother to have a committee? Why did we even bother to study it? It just made me more and more upset that we had taken the time when, it's like our voice. Hopefully, Bobby also sent a letter and they read the letter, but
Oh, good.
I'm still pretty worked up about it because we did our due diligence over here. We did, and we did not just follow what the state league wanted. We made up our own opinion of what we wanted to have happen here as our league.
Yeah, well, that's frustrating. I'll email Allison and,
Oh, Allison's gotten a copy of our letter.
well, that may be, but I'll still email her and say,
Well, I need to do that too. That's what the MELD leader said. You need to get a hold of Allison. I said, but she wasn't running the meeting. And she said, it doesn't matter. Just let her know what happened and that
yeah.
you feel like your voice almost wasn't heard.
And she's the league person who
I know.
speaks for redistricting, so.
We didn't necessarily agree with her maps. That's why we wanted to study them ourselves. That's why we took the time. Otherwise, we could have just rubber stamped whatever Allison said. Go for it, Allison. We wanted to study it ourselves.
Oh, that's interesting that you came up with a different map.
Well, originally she was going to
Two.
separate us from Spokane. She was going to cut the congressional district right across, horizontally. And I said, no. I don't know if you're aware, our entire medical program for WSU is in Spokane now.
Oh, that's right.
A huge number of WSU employees live and work up there. They're part of our campus, but they live up there. But that was later changed. It had something to do with the tribes and what they were trying to do to keep tribes together. It turns out the tribes didn't want to be kept together anyway. They wanted to be two different congressional, it was kind of a mess. But
well, redistricting is an interesting.
It's messy.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, I got to commend Allison for even taking this on. It was a huge, as I told her, I said, that's a Herculean task. So I don't want to be terribly critical of Allison. I just think it's beyond herding cats. That's how complicated it is.
Do you know Allison's background?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she's Mary McCaffrey's granddaughter.
Yeah. Yep. She's also a graduate at MIT. It's not like she's lacking.
Oh, Stanford.
Stanford. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was something big. Anyway, so yeah, well, I will see how it comes out in the wash, I guess. I don't know what else we can do, really. Deb?
Say something.
Oh, I wanted to get Carolyn, because she does our social media here in Pullman for our Pullman League. Any ideas she has for helping us get the word out about these, the election credibility project, the Be a Voter. We need ideas. to spread it, this information. I mean,
Yeah.
we can all talk among ourselves a lot, and we do, but we need to reach out to other people. So Carolyn, have you got any ideas?
Well, I like the factoids and the social media kit that you have on the website.
To
I mean,
be a voter?
those are the things I need. The visuals, I think visuals are the best, the easiest way to connect with people. It's quick, simple. And then it's always wording is what I struggle with because I'm not a good writer. So if anybody on the league has ideas, you know, send me a photo and the words with it. It's really easy for me to post. It's just hard for me to come up with everything all the time. So I'm going to work on those factoids and do that with, you know, maybe one a week or something like that.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I would like to say one thing on that, Carolyn, and that is please do not use the term factoid.
Thank you.
Oh, is that what?
Factoid
Okay.
is,
Oh, yeah.
it basically is a mistruth. It's just like if you say something often, that's what the Trump administration does. They use a bunch of factoids.
Well, that's what it said on there.
I know.
That's why
We didn't
I know.
want it to.
I know,
We
Pat,
I
didn't
heard you
expect
say
it
that,
to.
and I only use that because that's what I'm referring to is these little clips in there is what I want to
Yeah.
use. So
Maybe truth.
Okay.
How about, well, I'm still,
How about just facts? How about facts?
well, I don't need to use any of those words if I have that nice little photo and the description. It's not even, it's
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
yeah, and
yeah,
those you'll
use the
have-
Be a Voter toolkit. It's,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
and
it's
you'll
ready-
have more
ready
of those after, you know, probably in
next
you
year.
know, in next year. Yeah, well, next year is closer and closer.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, but Deb will know when there's more on
Okay.
there, but
When we
yeah,
update, yeah.
great.
They're working constantly on new photographs and new ways to put things together. So yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. It's great.
And think about, well, I guess I need to think about whether there's a way of putting together a packet. I'm looking at my thing, a packet to, uh-oh, I've lost you all.
Oh dear.
My
We still
bad.
see you.
No, we still see you.
Anyway, like the suggestion was for the Realtors Association for new people who have never voted automatically by mail before. Maybe a packet of these things somehow that go to the realtors or go to, because you're in Pullman, new professors, new students, new people who've moved in from other parts of the country. I think it's too late for
This
this
time.
year because ballots are out but
Yeah, registration
let's-
ends the 25th.
well, you can register, you have same day
You can go.
registration, but
Yeah.
I think we need to put our efforts into being prepared for next year. And I don't know when people will start paying attention, but we can just keep on hitting them over the head with this stuff.
Gonna be a long slog.
One
Well,
thing
yeah.
one thing I'd like to mention about social media is social media only works if people move it on, like it and share it. And you know, we only follow in our Instagram, we only follow other leagues. I don't follow or city people, you know, somebody close to our community, but I don't follow people. That I follow leagues.
Yeah.
And I noticed a lot of the leagues are only getting 1 or 2 likes, you know, and I try to share some of their information just because, you know, I like the way they posted it or it's good information. Well, all of it's good, but if our members are not following social media, but I understand it's a struggle to follow some of the social media. But, you know, I'm asking the members, maybe you go on, just look up the league stuff, like it, share it with your friends, and then get off. You know, you don't have to get burdened with it. But
one thing to consider, to remember, is that every state has its own election laws. So
Right.
if anybody's going to share somebody out of state, somehow you need to put in there that this
Right.
is just Washington. Because
Right.
one of the things we're finding out is that people assume the laws are the same in every state. And that's one of the things they think is fraudulent, is because we do it, because we allow dead people to vote.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So somehow we need to get that into so that it can be shared without people having to think about where they're sharing it.
Right. Yeah, I only share things that are nationwide or, nothing that's within the state, because.
But other people may share the same thing and share it to people in other states. So,
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
at a certain point, you you can't be, I mean, that's why I also teach people to be educated and look into, something specific. You can't.
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
you only do like a total good faith that, because the issue is, it is complicated. There really isn't one uniform thing, and that's what's so problematic
So
about
I
it.
think we can do a truth sandwich that every state has its own laws.
Yeah,
So that would be good. Yeah.
So,
that's a good point, because they are so different. And that's where, civics education helps too. Granted, our state is ahead of everybody else doing that also,
yeah.
but we would like to be leaders in a lot of ways in Washington state, because we have a good system here.
Yeah.
So we need to spread the word also to other leagues to say, hey, you really ought to make your state teach civics, or
Yeah.
election laws better. I had a epiphany on because I realized I did not know what the hospital board did when we were holding the election forum. And it's like, wow, I consider myself an educated person, but I really didn't know what they did or how they worked in conjunction with the hospital. And so I'm thinking, here in this town, we need something on local government. Who does what?
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, we'll talk about this more later, but it just hit me that this is something that we, when we first incorporated League, you had to write that booklet on know your local government.
Yes.
But that was in the 50s. I'm not sure things are the same now. So
Perhaps not.
yeah.
Honestly, as a group, the biggest thing we can do really is start looking at things for younger kids.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it off and on, but getting Joanna
It
Bailey
is
at the
the middle
library and being part of when they read, going into elementary schools honestly, that's going to be, that would get people younger, and it gets their parents too. And, but we don't, that I'm not saying I have the solution to what to do exactly and how to do it, but getting those opportunities for kids to be voting in their classroom, for kids to see that is, I honestly think is the best way to really start making changes, making more people know.
So anybody have any more questions for Linnea? We're getting down to 8 minutes left. We've ranged a bit beyond the topic, but
It's all related to voting. So.
Yeah. Lucy.
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Well, I just noticed you popped up on the screen. Have you got something to add or ask?
I appreciated all the good advice that we're hearing this morning. And I look forward to our website having the appropriate voter service information. I was trying to think of some pictures and some witty advice I could add, but it'll come later, maybe after the meeting's over.
Of course.
Anyway, thanks for a good meeting. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I would agree. If there's no other comments, I think we will go ahead and end. And I do want to thank Linnea for, you know, really bringing this into our focus. And I think it's definitely a good topic for us to discuss at our board meeting about what do we want to do next, and how can we help facilitate a project like this, because, you know, all politics, not all politics, but, you know, a lot of politics happen at the local level, and we want to make sure. I mean, fortunately, we're in a really good place, honestly, politically. I feel like we have an honest system in Washington, and certainly I feel good about Whitman County, although I'm sure there's stuff that goes on that we got to be careful about. So
Always, yeah.
always have to be vigilant.
Yes.
So I thank you for your time, and you know, everybody is welcome to get a couple more minutes in their day.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And, you know, you could call, I can be the point of contact between the state level and all of us. And if anybody's interested in any of these projects or any other questions about voter service, please contact me.
That's great.
Bye,
Thanks.
y'all.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you, Linnea.
Thank you.
Bye.